The sun hung low over the red mesas of Elysium Prime, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers over the dusty ground. Ethan Mercer, a rugged rancher from one of the newer human settlements, rode slowly along the winding dirt path. The planet was harsh, with its jagged cliffs and dry air, but it reminded him of old Earth landscapes he had studied as a boy. Here, humans were learning to adapt, to live among alien skies and unknown soils. But for Ethan, it was more than survival. It was a chance to prove himself, to carve out something meaningful in this new world. Ethan paused atop a hill and squinted across the valley. There, in the distance, he saw movement. A small group of people moved deliberately through the mesas. They didn't carry the usual tools of miners or settlers. Instead, they seemed in harmony with the land, stepping lightly, observing carefully. His curiosity piqued. He had heard rumors of a small, self-sustaining colony that maintained old Earth traditions, especially those of Native Americans who had migrated here centuries ago, but no one had ever seen them up close until now. Ethan nudged his horse forward, careful to make no sound. As he approached the valley floor, he saw her, Ahioka, a woman with long, dark hair braided neatly down her back, stood by a small stream, examining a cluster of strange alien plants. Her presence was calm yet commanding, as if the land itself listened to her. She wore a simple, earth-toned tunic that seemed to blend with the surroundings, and a small pouch hung at her side, filled with tools that looked as old as they were practical. Ahioka's eyes lifted as if she sensed his presence without hearing him. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Ethan felt the strange mix of awe and nervousness that comes when you meet someone who carries both wisdom and confidence. "You're far from your settlement," she said softly, but her voice carried clearly across the open space. "Why do you wander here?" Ethan swallowed, feeling the weight of her gaze. I was scouting land," he said, "looking for places where humans can settle, where we can build." Ahioka's expression remained neutral, but a flicker of curiosity danced in her eyes. "And you think this land belongs to humans?" she asked. He hesitated. I didn't know anyone lived here," he admitted. She smiled faintly. Not with warmth, but with understanding. "This land has always lived," she said. "We are only visitors. Some of us choose to live in harmony. Others do not." Ethan realized he had much to learn. But more than that, he felt drawn to her. As though she carried a knowledge he could not yet understand, he dismounted and approached slowly, keeping his hands visible and his steps careful. Ahioka watched him, her stance relaxed but alert. "You must understand," she said, "that choosing to step here is not the same as choosing to stay. Many come and go. Few stay, and fewer still understand." "I want to understand," Ethan said honestly. "I want to learn." Her eyes softened just a little. "Words are easy," she said. "Understanding, that is the test." For several minutes, they stood in silence. The wind stirred the dust, and alien birds called from high cliffs. Ethan noticed the careful arrangement of plants along the stream, the small earthen shelters tucked into the rocks. It was clear that Ahioka's people had built this place not with haste or technology alone, but with respect for the land. Finally, she gestured for him to follow. "Walk with me," she said. As they moved through the narrow canyon paths, she explained the ways her community survived. They grew plants that could thrive in the alien soil, collected water in ingenious containers that minimized waste, and used sunlight and wind to power small devices. Every action was deliberate, every tool used thoughtfully. Ethan listened in amazement. This was not the careless expansion he had witnessed in other colonies. Here, humans lived in balance, observing the planet rather than demanding it. "You've built all this without outside help?" he asked. Ahioka nodded. "We have had help from those who understand nature, and from those who remember the old ways. But mostly, we have patience and observation. That is our strongest tool." They reached a small clearing where several people were tending plants, weaving simple baskets, or checking delicate machinery that looked powered by sunlight. The sight filled Ethan with both admiration and a twinge of doubt. Could he ever match this level of care and thoughtfulness? One of the younger members, a boy no older than 10, ran to Ahioka and handed her a small woven pouch filled with bright alien berries. She smiled and nodded at the child before turning back to Ethan. "You see," she said, "every action matters. Every choice has a consequence. Humans often forget this, especially when they carry technology like magic in their hands. But the world is not ours to command, it is ours to respect." Ethan nodded slowly. He realized that respecting the land meant more than careful planting or water collection. It meant humility, patience, and seeing value beyond immediate gain. He had never encountered anyone who spoke so plainly, yet so wisely. As the sun dipped lower, Ahioka led him to a ridge overlooking the mesa. The valley below glowed gold and crimson. "This is where we live," she said. "Some would call it a frontier. I call it home." Ethan inhaled the scent of dry earth and alien flora. It was strange, yet comforting. He felt, for the first time since arriving on Elysium Prime, that he could belong somewhere if he learned to understand what belonged to the land first. She turned to him, her expression serious now. "There is one thing you must know, Ethan Mercer," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. "Choosing a woman like me, it is not about desire or admiration. It is about understanding life in its truest form. Are you prepared for that?" Ethan met her gaze, the wind tugging at his jacket and hair. "I think I am," he said. And though he didn't fully understand what it meant, he knew he wanted to try. Ahioka's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "Then you will begin your journey here, not as a conqueror, not as a settler, but as a learner. Only then will you see the true value of this world, and of the people who care for it." They stayed on the ridge until the first stars appeared in the alien sky. Tiny points of light against the violet evening. Ethan thought of all the stories he had heard of humanity's strength of ingenuity, courage, and endurance. Yet here, he realized, strength also came from patience, observation, and respect. Perhaps this was the version of humanity he had been searching for all along. As they descended back into the valley, Ethan knew this encounter would change him forever. He did not yet know how, but he felt certain that the choices he made from this moment onward would define not only his life, but the future of the human settlements on Elysium Prime. Ahioka led him toward a small communal fire, where others gathered quietly, sharing stories and food. "Come," she said. "Sit. Listen. Learn. The land will teach you if you are willing to hear." Ethan followed, feeling both nervous and exhilarated. Around the fire, he saw humans thriving without fear, without greed, people who had chosen harmony over dominance. And for the first time, he understood that the true frontier was not merely the alien land around him, but the possibilities within himself. That night, as the fire flickered against the deep purple sky, Ethan Mercer knew his life had changed. The world was wider, stranger, and more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And the woman who had welcomed him into it was not just a guide, but a challenge, a teacher, and perhaps, in time, a partner for a journey that would test every part of his humanity. Ahioka looked at him across the firelight, her eyes calm and unwavering. "Remember," she said softly, "choosing a woman like me is not about who you love. It is about who you are willing to become." Ethan nodded. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the beginning of a new chapter. And in that moment, surrounded by alien mesas and human ingenuity, he understood that some journeys were not measured in miles or achievements, but in the courage to learn and grow. The morning sun rose slowly over Elysium Prime, spilling golden light across the red mesas and jagged cliffs. Ethan Mercer awoke before the others, the crisp alien air filling his lungs as he stepped outside his small shelter. Last night's encounter with Ahioka and her community had left a deep impression on him. Their ways of living, so balanced with the land, seemed almost impossible in his mind. Yet, standing there now, he felt a strange hope that perhaps humans could thrive here, not by conquering, but by learning. Ahioka had instructed him to spend the morning observing. "Learning is the first step to understanding," she had said. Ethan had nodded, though he wasn't sure what he would learn. As he wandered toward the small fields of alien crops, he saw the community already at work. Children tended small plants with careful hands, adults moved with precision, and every action seemed purposeful. Ethan watched as Ahioka guided a young girl, teaching her how to strengthen the soil using natural fertilizers from nearby plants. It was simple, yet brilliant. He realized that the settlers had learned to combine Earth knowledge with the planet's own resources, a harmony he had rarely seen among humans before. "Good morning, Ethan," Ahioka said, appearing silently beside him. She carried a small basket of fruits that glowed faintly in the sunlight. "Today, you will help. Not as a guest, but as a learner." Ethan nodded. "Where should I start?" "Observe first," she replied. "Then act." For hours, he watched the community's routines. They had devised ways to collect water without pumps, using channels that guided the rain into shallow reservoirs. Solar panels were crafted with local minerals, absorbing the sun's energy more efficiently than anything he had seen back in the settlements. But what fascinated him most were the alien crops they grew in strange patterns, yet the settlers knew exactly how to maximize their yield without exhausting the soil. When Ahioka handed him a small hoe, he felt both excitement and anxiety. "Start by loosening the soil here," she instructed, pointing to a small patch. Ethan worked carefully, trying to mimic her movements, and she observed silently. Every once in a while, she corrected his grip or motion. "You are too forceful," she said softly. "The land responds best to gentle hands." Hours passed, and Ethan began to understand the subtle language of the plants and the soil. He learned that growth was not forced but encouraged, and that patience was as important as skill. Ahioka's methods weren't just clever, they were deeply respectful, rooted in observation and harmony. By midday, clouds began to gather over the mesas. It was unusual, even for Elysium Prime, to see such thick formations, and the settlers started to notice changes in the wind and temperature. Ahioka approached Ethan with a serious expression. "The storm is coming faster than usual," she said. "It could be dangerous, but not deadly. It will test your ability to think and adapt. You must act carefully. Sane. Sama. Sane." Ethan followed her instructions as the community worked to prepare. They reinforced the small shelters, moved delicate plants into covered spaces, and adjusted the channels that collected water. He realized that every small decision mattered. One misstep could lead to damaged crops or flooded shelters. The storm hit in the late afternoon. Winds howled through the mesas, carrying dust and small debris. But unlike storms he had faced on Earth, this one was unpredictable, shifting directions suddenly and creating areas of intense wind alongside calm pockets. Ethan's heart raced as he tried to adjust the shelters and protect the crops. But soon he realized his efforts alone were not enough. Ahioka approached, calm and composed. "Observe, Ethan," she said. "Then act differently. Technology alone will not save you. You must listen to the land." Ethan looked around. He noticed the plants leaning naturally toward sheltered areas, the small channels shifting water towards safe reservoirs. For the first time, he tried to think like the settlers, not as a man used to commanding machines. He moved carefully, adjusting the channels, reinforcing natural barriers, and using small, clever methods, suggested by Ahioka's example. Hours passed. And slowly, the damage from the storm was minimized. The shelters remained intact. Most plants were safe, and no one panicked. Ethan's chest swelled with a quiet pride, not from victory, but from understanding. He realized that human ingenuity wasn't only about machines or force, it was about observation, adaptation, and respect. As the storm cleared, the sky turned a deep orange, casting a warm glow over the valley. Ethan stood beside Ahioka on a ridge, looking down at the small community below. Everything was intact. For the first time, he felt the deep satisfaction of contributing to something greater than himself. "You see now," Ahioka said, her voice calm and gentle, "that human strength is not only in your arms or tools, it is in your mind, your heart, and your ability to adapt." Ethan nodded, still catching his breath. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted. "Back home, we try to control nature. Here, you work with it." Ahioka smiled faintly. "That is why some cannot survive here. They forget that life is not something to command, but something to understand. You may have a chance." The rest of the afternoon passed in quiet activity. Ethan helped distribute supplies, organized small storage areas, and even assisted a group of children in weaving sun-proof coverings for their plants. Each task was simple, yet required care and thought. By evening, he felt exhausted, but exhilarated. He had learned more in one day than in months, back at his settlement. As they sat around a small communal fire that evening, Ethan noticed something remarkable. The settlers did not speak of wealth, power, or conquest. They shared knowledge, stories, and laughter. Every person's role was respected, and every contribution valued. He began to understand that this was the true strength of humanity, not domination, but cooperation, ingenuity, and respect. Ahioka noticed his gaze. "You have done well today," she said. "But remember, the storm was only a small test. The world will ask more of you, and more importantly, it will ask what kind of human you wish to be." Ethan looked at her, sensing layers of meaning behind her words. I want to learn. I want to be better." Her eyes softened. "Then you must continue to observe. Continue to act carefully. Human strength is more than courage. It is patience, wisdom, and humility." Night fell over the mesas, and the stars blinked like distant lanterns in the alien sky. Ethan lay awake, thinking about the day. He had risked nothing physical, yet he had been tested in ways he had never imagined. The storm had been a challenge, yes, but the real test was understanding how to act wisely, respecting the land and those who depended on it. Ahioka's words echoed in his mind. "Choosing a woman like me. It is about understanding life in its truest form." Ethan realized that her statement was not only about her, it was about the principles she represented. Humanity's future on this planet depended on people like her, people willing to teach, guide, and show that strength comes in many forms. By the first light of dawn, Ethan had made a decision. He would not treat Elysium Prime as a conquest or a resource. He would learn, observe, and adapt. He would strive to understand the planet and its people, not impose his own ways. Most importantly, he wanted to understand Ahioka not as a woman to admire from afar, but as a partner in thought, action, and respect for life. The day had tested him, challenged him, and humbled him. But as he looked across the valley at the small, thriving community, he felt hope for himself, for humanity, and for a future where humans could thrive, not by force, but by intelligence, empathy, and cooperation. Ahioka joined him on the ridge once more, her expression unreadable in the morning light. "You have learned much," she said. "But the path is long, Ethan Mercer. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and your choices will matter even more." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I will do my best." Ahioka's lips curved into a small, approving smile. "Then perhaps you are ready for what comes next. Humanity's future is not only in the stars, but in the hearts of those who choose to learn." And with that, Ethan felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. He had faced his first test, not of strength, but of ingenuity, understanding, and respect. And he knew that with Ahioka's guidance, he could rise to meet the next challenge, wherever it might come from. As the sun climbed higher, bathing the valley in warm light, Ethan Mercer took his first real steps toward becoming the kind of human who could thrive on Elysium Prime. Not just surviving, but understanding, learning, and growing alongside the land and its people. The morning sun cast a soft golden glow over the valley, but Ethan Mercer felt tension in the air. The calm and rhythm of Ahioka's community had been tested yesterday, and while they had survived the storm, challenges beyond nature awaited. Ethan had begun to understand the value of patience, observation, and adaptability. But the world beyond the valley presented a very different test. Ethan rode toward the ridge overlooking the mesa where his own settlement lay. From there, he could see the small cluster of structures and activity that marked the human expansion into Elysium Prime. Unlike Ahioka's colony, his settlement operated with efficiency and speed, guided by corporate rules and deadlines. Buildings were uniform, paths were straight, and every action was measured against productivity. It was alien in its rigidity, yet familiar to him. As he gazed at the settlement, a messenger approached from Ahioka's community, a young woman carrying a small device used to communicate with distant settlers. Ethan took it and listened carefully. The corporate backers had sent word. They wanted access to Ahioka's land. Mineral surveys had indicated rare resources beneath the mesas, and some humans were eager to extract them without regard for the small colony living above. Ethan's heart sank. He had not anticipated this conflict, and he felt a wave of responsibility. Ahioka's people were strong, but they were few, and the settlers pursuing resources were numerous and organized. Yet, even in the face of possible conflict, Ethan knew he could not act with force. Yesterday had taught him that understanding and ingenuity were more powerful than weapons or threats. He rode back to the valley and found Ahioka tending to her plants, her hands skillful and precise even in the morning light. "They are coming," Ethan said simply, handing her the device. Ahioka looked up calmly, examining the message. "I expected this," she said, her voice steady. Humans forget that the land belongs to more than just those who see it first, but they are predictable. Their actions are based on fear, greed, and impatience. "We must respond differently," Ethan nodded, though he felt uneasy. "What do we do?" "We show them understanding and intelligence," Ahioka replied. "We do not fight. We demonstrate that cooperation and respect are stronger than force. That is what you have begun to learn, Ethan. Today, you will put it into practice." The rest of the morning was spent preparing. Unlike physical defenses, their preparations were subtle and strategic. Ethan helped to build visible pathways that guided potential visitors toward areas where they could learn, observe, and understand the community's work. He helped organize interactive displays of the crops, water systems, and solar devices, showing how each functioned without harming the land. By mid-morning, a small team from Ethan's settlement arrived at the edge of the valley. They were cautious, expecting confrontation, but instead were greeted by Ethan himself. "Wait," he said firmly. "They are not here to fight. Look and learn before you act." The visitors glanced around, confused. Ethan led them along the paths he had prepared. He demonstrated how the settlers collected water, tended plants, and harnessed solar energy. Ahioka joined him, speaking calmly and clearly about the principles behind each method. She explained that every action had consequences, that efficiency alone was meaningless without care, and that humans could thrive if they respected the land and each other. The settlers were skeptical at first, their eyes scanning for weaknesses. Yet, as they observed, their skepticism gave way to curiosity. Some asked questions about the crops, others about the solar systems. Ethan answered honestly, showing that he had learned from Ahioka, that he was no longer merely a visitor, but a participant who understood the delicate balance of life in the valley. Ahioka watched silently, her expression unreadable. She allowed Ethan to take the lead, observing how he guided the outsiders with patience and thoughtfulness. She knew that the true test was not merely survival or knowledge, but the ability to teach and inspire respect. By midday, a breakthrough occurred. One of the visitors, a young engineer, knelt beside a small alien plant and observed the patterns in its growth. "I've never seen this before," he said quietly. It's beautiful. There's a logic here I don't understand. Ethan smiled. That logic is balance, he said. We learn from the land, not against it. If you take the time to observe and adapt, it will teach you more than any manual or tool ever could. The engineer nodded, and soon others joined, asking questions, examining systems, and even attempting small tasks under Ethan's and Ahioka's guidance. What had begun as potential conflict transformed into shared curiosity. The visitors started to see the wisdom in patience, the value of cooperation, and the power of human ingenuity when paired with respect. Later in the afternoon, Ethan and Ahioka took a quiet walk along a narrow path overlooking the valley. You handled them well, Ahioka said. You did not react with fear or authority. You guided, explained, and showed patience. That is true leadership. Ethan exhaled, feeling both relief and pride. I couldn't have done it without you. Your methods, they're incredible. I've learned more from observing than from anything back at my settlement. Ahioka nodded. Observing is only the first step. Understanding comes when you act wisely. Today, you acted with understanding. As they returned to the valley, a soft wind rustled through the alien flora. The community had continued its work, unaffected by the presence of outsiders. Children tended plants, adults repaired small solar arrays, and life continued in harmony with the land. Ethan felt a deep sense of respect for Ahioka and her people, not only for their knowledge, but for the values that guided them. That evening, the settlers from Ethan's settlement gathered to share their observations. For the first time, they spoke of collaboration rather than extraction, of curiosity rather than control. The young engineer, who had been skeptical at first, approached Ethan. I never thought humans could work like this, he said. You've shown us another way. Describe 7, Ethan smiled. We can't just take and use. We must learn and adapt. That's how we thrive, not by force, but by understanding. Ahioka joined them quietly, watching as humans began to grasp the principles that had guided her community for years. She spoke softly, ensuring her words carried wisdom without commanding obedience. Strength comes in many forms, she said. It is not only in numbers, machines, or speed. It is in thought, patience, and respect. Humans who understand this will thrive anywhere. The visitors left the valley with new insight, carrying lessons that could transform their settlements. Ethan remained behind, watching them ride back toward the mesas. He realized that the true challenge of human expansion was not surviving alien landscapes, but understanding how to live within them wisely. As the night fell, Ethan and Ahioka walked to the ridge, looking out at the glowing stars scattered across the violet sky. You are learning quickly, Ahioka said, but understanding others is only the beginning. You must also understand yourself and the choices you make. Ethan nodded. I want to understand. I want to be someone who can help, not just lead or take. Ahioka smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Then you are on the right path. Remember, true strength comes not from domination, but from insight and empathy. If you can master this, you will be ready for the greater challenges ahead. For the first time, Ethan felt a deep connection to this alien world, not as a conqueror or settler, but as a learner and participant. He understood that humans had incredible potential, not only because of their tools or intelligence, but because of their capacity to adapt, empathize, and collaborate. As they descended back into the valley, Ethan felt a quiet resolve settle in his chest. The cultural collision he had witnessed was not about conflict, but about opportunity. Opportunity to grow, to learn, and to lead in a new way. And through it all, Ahioka's presence reminded him that humanity's strength lay not only in skill, but in understanding, respect, and the courage to change. That night, Ethan lay under the alien sky, the glow of distant stars casting faint light across the valley. He thought about the settlers from his home, their skepticism, and the lessons they had learned today. He thought about Ahioka, her wisdom, and the patience she had shown him. And he realized that the future of humans on this planet, perhaps even across the galaxy, depended not only on courage and innovation, but on the ability to understand and respect the world and people around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests of ingenuity, and new opportunities to learn. But for now, Ethan Mercer felt a quiet satisfaction. He had faced the true test of humanity not with force, but with understanding. And he knew that with Ahyoka by his side, guiding him, he could continue to grow, adapt, and help build a future where humans could thrive alongside the alien world. The valley was quiet that morning, bathed in soft amber light. Ethan Mercer stood at the edge of the ridge, looking down at the small settlement below. The lessons of the past days had changed him. He had learned to observe, to adapt, and to understand the delicate balance between humans and the alien land of Elysium Prime. Yet, today would test him in ways he had never imagined. Ahyoka approached silently, carrying a small basket of supplies. Her presence was calm but purposeful, and Ethan could feel the weight of the responsibility she had entrusted to him. "Ethan," she said softly, "today you will face a choice. Not one of life and death, but one of understanding and courage. Are you ready?" Ethan nodded. "I will do my best." She handed him a map marked with several points in the valley. "A section of the settlement has an unstable structure," she explained. "If it is not supported, the plants and equipment below could be damaged. You must help guide the repairs." Ethan examined the structure. It was a small observation platform built on the edge of a cliff. The wind had weakened its supports, and one wrong move could cause damage to the delicate gardens below. He felt a wave of anxiety. This was not a battle with an enemy, but a challenge of intellect, skill, and care. "Remember," Ahyoka said, "technology alone will not save it. You must think, adapt, and work with the land." Ethan took a deep breath and approached the platform. Using simple tools provided by Ahyoka, he began examining the supports. He noticed how the wind flowed around the cliff and how certain angles were more vulnerable than others. He studied the surrounding plants and soil, searching for natural anchors that could reinforce the structure without damaging the land. Hours passed as Ethan carefully adjusted beams, tied supports, and guided small ropes to stabilize the platform. Ahyoka observed silently, offering small suggestions only when necessary. "Use the natural slope to your advantage," she said once. "Let the land support you, not resist you." Ethan felt his confidence grow. He realized that the challenge was not only technical but also a test of patience and perception. Every adjustment required thought, every action mattered. He worked methodically, using a combination of human ingenuity and the ecological knowledge he had gained from Ahyoka. As he placed the final support beam, a sudden gust of wind swept through the cliffside. Ethan's heart raced. But he remembered Ahyoka's lessons. He adjusted the ropes and braces, letting the structure sway gently with the wind rather than resisting it. Slowly, the platform stabilized, and he stepped back to examine his work. It was secure. The gardens below remained untouched. Ethan exhaled, feeling a surge of quiet pride. This was not a victory over nature, it was a partnership with it. Ahyoka approached, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "Well done," she said. "You have not only repaired the structure, but you have done so with understanding. You acted with thought, patience, and respect. That is the mark of true human strength." Ethan smiled, but he felt there was more to learn. "I understand the structure," he said. "But what about the people who may not see this? The settlers who want to take the land?" Ahyoka's expression grew serious. "Understanding is only part of the challenge. Today, you must also decide how to act with others. Will you impose your will, or guide them to understand?" Later that morning, a small group of settlers arrived at the valley once again, this time with plans to expand their settlement and survey for resources. They expected confrontation, but instead found Ethan and Ahyoka waiting. "You must leave this area," one of the settlers said firmly. "The land is rich, and we need to take it for the settlement." Ethan stepped forward. "Before you act, I ask you to see what has been built here. Observe, learn, and understand. Then decide how to proceed. The settlers looked at him skeptically, expecting defiance or negotiation. But Ethan did not react with anger. He calmly guided them through the valley, showing the carefully cultivated gardens, the solar-powered devices, and the water systems. Ahioka explained the principles behind each design, the ways in which the settlers had learned to live in harmony with the land. At first, the visitors resisted. They were used to taking what they wanted and measuring success by efficiency and yield. But slowly, their skepticism began to shift. They saw how carefully every action had been planned, how each plant and system worked in harmony. One engineer knelt to examine a small water channel. "I've never seen this before," he said. "It works perfectly with the flow of the land." "Ingenious," Ethan nodded. "That is what happens when you observe first and act carefully. The land can teach you, if you are willing to listen." The settlers spent hours learning, asking questions, and testing small ideas under Ethan's guidance. By the end of the day, they were no longer demanding control. They were curious, thoughtful, and respectful. As the sun began to set, Ahioka led Ethan to a quiet ridge overlooking the valley. "You have done more than repair a structure," she said. "You have guided others to understanding. That is a choice few can make. You have learned the value of patience, respect, and wisdom. But now, you face the ultimate choice." Ethan looked at her, uncertain. "What do you mean?" "To walk with me," she said softly, "is to choose more than admiration or desire. It is to accept responsibility, to act with understanding, and to continue learning. Choosing a woman like me, it is about choosing the life she represents, the values she embodies. Are you ready for that responsibility?" Ethan paused, thinking of the past days. He thought of the storm, of repairing the platform, of guiding the settlers. He realized that every moment had prepared him for this decision. It was not about fear, force, or personal gain. It was about commitment, understanding, and growth. He began, then took a deep breath. "I am ready. I want to walk that path with you. I want to learn, respect, and grow with you." Ahioka's eyes softened, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. "Then you have made the right choice," she said. "Together, we will face whatever challenges come next. Not as conquerors, not as leaders of others, but as humans who understand the world and each other." They walked back to the valley as the sky turned deep violet. The community continued its work. Children laughing, adults tending plants and systems, and life thriving in harmony with the land. Ethan felt a profound connection to this place, and to the woman who had guided him. He understood now that true courage was not about taking risks for glory, but about making choices that respected life, nurtured growth, and inspired understanding. That night, as stars glimmered across the alien sky, Ethan sat beside Ahioka by the communal fire. They shared a quiet meal, exchanging thoughts about the day and the lessons learned. The settlers who had visited departed peacefully, carrying new respect for the valley and its people. Ethan realized that this outcome had been possible because he had chosen understanding over conflict, observation over reaction, and patience over haste. Ahioka looked at him across the firelight. "You have grown," she said softly. "Not because of the tasks you completed, but because of the choices you made. That is what it means to be human. Truly human in this world." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle within him. "I understand now," he said. "Strength is not just what we can build or control, but how we act with respect, wisdom, and care." Ahioka's hand brushed his lightly, a gesture of approval and trust. "Then you are ready for the future," she said. "And the future is not only what we do, but how we do it." Together, as they watched the alien sky, Ethan thought of the days ahead, the challenges, the discoveries, and the opportunities to grow. He knew that his journey had only begun, but he felt ready. With patience, observation, and respect guiding his actions, he could face whatever came next. The ultimate choice had been made, not one of fear, greed, or desire, but of understanding, responsibility, and partnership. And as Ethan Mercer gazed at the glowing stars above, he felt the quiet certainty that the path he had chosen would lead not only to personal growth, but to a future where humans could thrive in harmony with the land and with each other. And in that moment, beside Ahioka and the valley she nurtured, Ethan understood the true meaning of the words she had spoken when they first met. Choose a woman like me, and you choose to become your best self. The night air was cool, the stars bright, and the valley calm. Life continued below, thriving quietly. And Ethan knew that he was ready to face the next steps not as a conqueror, but as a learner, a partner, and a human committed to understanding. The sun rose over the valley, casting long golden streaks across the mesas and the small settlement below. Ethan Mercer stood beside Ahioka, watching the community move with quiet efficiency. The days of storms, tests, and difficult choices had brought him to this point. He no longer felt like an outsider, nor a mere visitor. He was a part of something bigger, something alive, delicate, and full of promise. Ahioka placed a hand lightly on his arm. Today, she said, we will begin a new chapter. The land, the community, and humanity itself are ready for it. Ethan followed her through the valley, noting how the settlers moved with purpose but also with care. Children carefully tended the plants, adults adjusted the small solar arrays, and everyone seemed aware of how their actions influenced the balance of the land. The valley had become more than a settlement, it was a living testament to patience, observation, and cooperation. Their first task of the day was to plant a hybrid garden. The community had developed seeds that combined hardy earth plants with the best traits of alien flora. These gardens would feed the community, provide materials for construction and medicine, and demonstrate the harmony between humans and the planet. Ahioka handed Ethan a small sapling. Plant it carefully, she said. Every choice matters. Every hand that touches the land is a responsibility. Ethan knelt, feeling the soft soil beneath his fingers. He remembered the lessons of the storm, the unstable platform, and guiding the settlers. He worked slowly, letting the roots settle naturally, arranging the soil to protect the sapling from wind, and ensuring water could reach it without waste. As he planted, he realized this was more than a task. It was a symbol of growth, of trust, and of the future. The children gathered around him, curious and eager to help. Ethan smiled, showing them how to gently press the soil and care for the tiny plants. They laughed as the wind moved the leaves and petals, and for a moment, the valley seemed full of light and life beyond the horizon. Ahioka walked among them, guiding with quiet words, correcting only when necessary. See how every hand contributes? She asked Ethan. This is unity. This is strength. As the day progressed, Ethan noticed visitors approaching from the ridge above. It was the same group of settlers who had once come seeking resources, but today, their expressions were different. They carried curiosity, questions, and a desire to understand rather than dominate. Ethan met them halfway. Come, he said. See what can be achieved when we work with the land rather than against it. The visitors followed him into the valley, observing the gardens, the solar arrays, and the careful water channels. Ahioka joined them, explaining the techniques and philosophies that guided the community. She spoke of balance, respect, and learning from the world around them. One of the engineers, who had been skeptical from the start, knelt beside a sapling and carefully examined the soil. I never imagined humans could work like this, he admitted. We have always taken first and thought later. Here, everything has a reason. Ethan smiled. Reason and care go hand in hand. The land teaches us if we are willing to listen. By midday, the visitors were helping plant seeds, adjust water channels, and learn from the settlers. It was a quiet revolution. No battles, no arguments, just cooperation, curiosity, and shared effort. Ethan felt pride and joy at what was happening. The community was not only thriving itself, but it was teaching others to thrive as well. Ayoka guided Ethan to the ridge overlooking the valley. From there, they could see the small hills, the cultivated gardens, and the settlement structures blending seamlessly into the landscape. "Look at what you have helped create," she said softly. "Not by force, but by understanding. Not by control, but by respect. This is human strength at its finest." Ethan took a deep breath, watching the wind ripple through the alien grass. "I never imagined it could be like this," he said. "Humans, we can do more than just survive. We can thrive without harming the world around us." Ahioka nodded. "Yes, that is the future. One step at a time, with care and thought, humans can create wonders anywhere. But it requires patience, humility, and the courage to act wisely." The afternoon brought more collaborative work. Ethan worked with both his old settlement and Ahioka's community to build a small solar-powered irrigation system. Using natural slopes, the team designed channels that moved water efficiently without damaging the soil. Children watched eagerly, learning about mechanics and nature at the same time. By the end of the day, the system was functional, feeding water to the hybrid gardens below. Ethan realized something profound. True human achievement was not in domination, in force, or in wealth. It was in creating systems, communities, and lives that respected life, nurtured growth, and encouraged understanding. The visitors from his old settlement had begun to understand this as well. As evening fell, the valley glowed in the fading sunlight. The community gathered around a large fire, sharing stories of the day, laughter ringing softly in the air. Children rested against adults, plants swayed gently in the evening breeze, and the visitors joined in, no longer strangers, but partners in learning. Ahioka turned to Ethan. "You have grown much, and so has your understanding. But today also marks a promise. The promise of unity." "What kind of promise?" Ethan asked. "The kind that lasts beyond a single storm or challenge," she said. "The promise that humans can thrive when they work together, when they respect life and each other. You helped create that promise today. And tomorrow, you will help keep it." Ethan looked at the valley below, alive with cooperation and balance. "I understand," he said. "I want to continue this work. Not for recognition, not for reward, but because it is the right way to live." Ahioka smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight and stars above. "Then you have chosen wisely. Choosing a woman like me was never only about partnership. It was about commitment to the values she represents. You have chosen understanding, courage, and wisdom. That choice shapes not only your life, but the life of everyone around you." The stars brightened in the alien sky, their glow mirrored in the valley below. Ethan sat quietly, feeling the warmth of the fire, the hum of life around him, and the satisfaction of knowing that the lessons he had learned were not only his own, but could extend to others. Later, Ethan and Ahioka walked through the hybrid gardens under the starlight. Each plant glowed faintly, a symbol of growth, life, and harmony. "I never imagined a place like this could exist," Ethan said. "It feels alive in a way I have never felt before." Ahioka's hand brushed his lightly. "That is because it is alive, not only with plants and wind, but with humans who respect it. You are part of this life now, and your choices will continue to shape it." Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I will do my best. Not just for me, or for you, but for everyone here." "Then our work is just beginning," she said. "And together, we will help humanity thrive, not by force, but by wisdom, care, and cooperation. That is our strength." The valley below seemed to hum with life. Ethan looked at the settlers, the children, the adults, and the glowing gardens. He realized that the future was no longer uncertain. It was alive, vibrant, and full of possibility. Humans could thrive anywhere, as long as they carried patience, respect, and understanding in their hearts. For the first time, Ethan felt the quiet, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are meant to be. The journey had been long, the lessons hard, but the reward was worth every step. Ahioka looked at him once more. The land will continue to test us, but now we face it together. You are no longer only a learner. You are a guide, a partner, and a part of this community. And humanity's strength has grown because of it. Ethan smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep within him. Then let's continue, he said. Let's learn, grow, and help others see the way. As the night settled, the valley glowed faintly with the combined light of the stars, the fire, and the glowing gardens. Humans had found a way to thrive without harm, to grow without greed, and to act with understanding. Ethan Mercer knew that this was only the beginning. Together with Ahioka and the community, they would build a future where humans and the alien world could exist in harmony, thriving side by side. And in that moment, Ethan understood the full meaning of Ahioka's words from the first day they met. Choose a woman like me, and you choose to walk a path of wisdom, courage, and understanding. That choice shapes everything. The stars shone brighter than ever. The valley hummed with life. And Ethan Mercer felt hope, strength, and purpose in a way he never had before. Humanity's journey was far from over, but for the first time, it felt guided by the right hand. Not only human ingenuity, but understanding, respect, and partnership with the world itself.